You should send penguins?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, now that we got everybody, does everybody see the penguins?
Hold on. Huh. Let me, you know what? Let me close out, and I'm going to start. Maybe I need to, kind of refresh the link, as it were. Refresh the connection in a sense. So let me just start over. Now you did send the second email. Is there? I don't have any info there other than just the basic dial-in info, and it says view list.
Yes, I sent that one for Travis Black from Arkansas because he needed the link, so I resent him the link.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to go back. I'm going to click on free conference call / ITTS. Go to meeting wall. Join online meeting. Wait a minute, let me check something else. Wait a minute, hold on. No. Join online meeting. You know what? Let's just carry on. I just won't be able to see it. I still don't see it, but I don't think let's just carry on. Let's see if I will do just listening.
Okay. Well, my comment is, I don't know, Travis, were you able to get on? I see you're on. I see Jeff.
I've got penguins.
I'm sorry?
I've got penguins.
Okay. And Paula, I see that you're on.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Bruce?
Yes.
Hey, Bruce. I apologize. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, and then I'll ask my question once you're finished.
I know we've got a lot to go over today. I just need to let you know that I have to leave at 11 promptly because I've got to travel today.
Okay.
So just FYI.
Okay. Well, the most important thing, to be honest with you, I don't see this meeting. If you have to travel, then let's just go ahead. Paul, if you don't mind, I'll give you control of the meeting and you can work through the stuff that Travis had questions about.
Okay.
So I will give you the screen, Paula. So you now are the owner of the screen.
Okay. So I think I've accepted.
Now you should see the feed model in Excel.
Yes. Okay, just a couple of notes. I have made some additional changes to the tool based on some feedback from Travis. The tool that I'm showing is the one that was posted, the latest post. Once we get final comments and everything, I'll be posting again. I have updated user guides, updated and slightly modified tools as well. We are still working on one of the macros. I have someone in the office working on it right now. It appears that the macro functionality varies based upon the machine that it's running on. This is where we're creating the implant inputs. On some machines, it runs fine. On others, we get a debug message on it. That should not be happening. So I have one of our travel demand modelers here in the Atlanta office trying to debug that for me and figure it out because it's beyond my skill level with macros. So with that, we'll run through, I think this is the one that we wanted to see on the freight economic analysis tool. This is what we refer to as the on-model tool, and it is geared for examining the benefit, cost, and economic impacts of capacity projects or projects for which you would actually run the travel demand model.
Paula, before we, something you said earlier, you said there's been updates. I don't know when you've done updates, so when you update something, please let me know, because
Okay, I have not posted the updates to the file. That's the reason.
other than what was on Friday? Okay,
Right,
that's
right. I sent an email asking you if I should hold off until this meeting and we get additional comments to
yes,
update
because I've got some additional comments as well, and that is correct.
Right.
I just didn't know if you had posted something up between Friday or not. That was my comment.
No, I have not, because I figured folks would not have an opportunity to get through it, so before today, so.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so we can hit the start analysis here. Okay, and then again, this brings you to the instruction page. This is just a quick reference guide. You do have a lot more detailed within the user manual, but this does kind of go through the different tabs to tell you what's going on with each of those different tabs, and of course we have one of the buttons here. We did note in the user guide that we do not change the names of any of the tabs in the spreadsheet, because those are used in macros, and if you change the names, then that's going to cause macros and calculations to fail within the tool. So if we go to step 1, this is really the parameters page, and this is where you're going to set up your project. There's pretty detailed step-by-step demonstrations on how to set up file paths and everything. I think for the most part, people are already going to know that, but there are instructions in there in case you need them. It does give an example. I realize you guys work for a lot of different public agencies, so you may have very strict guidelines on where you store files and everything. So of course your internal guidelines would override any of the instructions on where to save items that's in the user guide. Okay. So for this one, we're just going to call it the February 1 test is what I'm going to name it. So I'm going to go into my folder file here, and I've created a folder, February 1 test, and I'm just going to click on that folder, and then I'm going to copy and paste it in here for my model save path. Make sure. I know my computer's running slow today, but it should be able to do these functions.
One of the things I think, Paul, is your computer. You work faster than your machine.
Well, it shouldn't take that time to paste.
And Holly, I noticed you just got on the call. Basically, we're walking through Travis's questions from the Arkansas model, and then because Travis has to be out by 11, so to honor his time commitment, we're going through that model first. So.
Okay.
And while we're at it, let's just go ahead and do a roll call. Who's all on the call?
This is Travis.
Arkansas, we got Travis.
In Virginia.
I'm sorry? And Virginia? Okay.
Yeah. Mike Garrett in VDOT.
Okay. Anybody? I got from Mississippi. I see Jeff and Tron. Anybody else?
Miss Holly Cohen here for Florida.
Hey, Holly. Anybody else I missed?
Tom's on, but I'm like, I've got 5 other things going on, so I'm
well,
really not paying
okay.
attention. So don't ask me questions. Thanks.
Okay, I won't ask any questions. So we can. Okay, anybody else that I missed? Okay.
Okay, so I finally got one of those in there, so let's see if it'll let me paste these real quickly. Okay. I guess it did just have to catch up with me, so. Okay, so I'm saving, this is just telling me where I'm going to save the model save file, our RIMI and our implant save files, and then for the RIMI users, it will also generate GIS output files, and so it will save those there. You can choose to save those in separate folders. It's just really a personal, it's either guided by your agency restrictions on where you save files or just personal choice there on how you set up your folder structure. Okay, so the next thing is you go down through here and you have to finish setting up your project. As noted, both in the instruction page as well as the manual, anything that has this orange or peach color means that there is something that the user needs to tell the tool here. So you can see here, if you click on, you'll get a drop-down menu. Your choice for the wage rates are county level or statewide average. Once again, within the user manual, it tells you when you may want to use one over the other. If you're looking at specific projects, you're going to want to use the county level. If you are doing a projects that maybe carries a lot of intrastate traffic, a lot more percentage of interstate traffic as opposed to local, then you may want to actually use the state average with that. Okay, so if you go on down through here, rest of this, everything in blue are just the assumptions that are being used in terms of the occupancy rates, the vehicle operating costs, how we go from average annual daily traffic or daily traffic to annualized factors, and those are our factors there, conversion factors. And then it also tells you in terms of your crash costs and your emission costs what the assumptions for monetizing those values are. And it tells you the units as well as the mode or the type, and then the source and the directions, any notes that may be used there. Okay. The next set of blocks comes to the simulation options, and this is where the user has to select a parameter for each of these. So this is where you're going to choose your economic model. So if you choose between RIMI or implant, so since we're doing the Arkansas example, we're going to use the implant. You can choose between, again, a statewide or the region or the county level total. So we'll use the county level here. And then you want to choose the state that you have here. So we'll choose Arkansas. And then you can get down into your year parameters. So your travel demand model base year, it's 2010. The travel demand model future year for the model runs that we have available for this demonstration are 2040. Travel demand model interim year, you can leave this blank or you can choose a year. It's actually, even if you have a year located here, it's going to ask you down here in your travel demand options whether or not you want to use the interim year. And there you have to choose yes or no. So even if you have a year showing up here, if you choose no, then it's not going to use that interim year in terms of the calculations.
Paul, I have a question. If I was going, say, for instance, in Memphis, they want to talk about another bridge. You have Arkansas, or actually not a case in point, like say Arkansas and Mississippi is looking at another bridge. There's no way to add Arkansas and Mississippi. You have to do them as two separate runs.
Correct. Now, if you were to use the shift model, then that's going to allow you to get your travel demand model output, but you would use 2 runs of the economic tool. So you would do 1 run using the output for the Arkansas regions, and then one tool for the Mississippi regions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, a counter to that could be possibly if you have a regional travel demand model, then that could potentially solve that for you. Okay, so next is your starting year analysis. The starting year analysis is going to start with your construction period. So let's say that we're going to start construction in 2018 for this kind of project. Your end of the year analysis is going to be your final forecast year, and so we'll choose 2040 since that's our travel demand model year. The construction start year, we've already said would be 2018, so that starts our construction. Let's say we have a 2-year construction period, assuming that. We can hit 2020. And then the opening year of the infrastructure. So what this is going to do, this is going to tell the tool when it needs to start counting the monetized user benefit. So this is when it's going to start your benefit stream. Okay, your construction year and your starting year will start your cost stream. Your benefit stream will start with this opening year of infrastructure. So we'll use 2020 in this example. Do you use the interim year of the travel forecast? We've said no here. Arkansas actually has a peak and off-peak, a time of day statewide model, so we will use the peak and off-peak here. And then this is estimate fatality impacts. This is just a toggle switch for yes or no, so we'll choose yes. User defined or the default crash rate, so we'll have default in there. And again, we'll choose default for these. If you're choosing default here, it does go to the region-wide default values. If you're looking at a project on a specific facility and you have more detailed crash rates to that facility or specific to your study area, you can always override those. Okay, and then this is the toggle switch for the CO2. Again, if you're using federal grants, you use CO2. A lot of times from a statewide or a subnational perspective, you may not choose CO2 because, again, those CO2 benefits do not necessarily accrue just to the area where the project is. And so that's the reason that you may want to sometimes choose no on that. Okay? So once you have all of your simulation options, you hit the confirm selection. And this can take several minutes. It really depends upon the speed of your machine. I've eaten up a lot of memory on my machine because I have a lot of versions of this model plus other various reports. So I've been timing this, and it's taking about 6 minutes on my machine to get this step set up.
Well, Paul, let's just go. Are you running it now?
Yes. So
okay,
you can see now because we have the little circle going that it's working. During the course of this, you may see times where it flashes up there that it's not responding. It'll just do that as it's going through the cycle there.
No, the reason I was asking, Paul, is this is a good place to pause because I do have some questions on the documentation up to this point.
Okay.
And I think the documentation is very clear, so I do commend it's always been very clear that you've written it. One of the things I was going through this is you mentioned a lot in this documentation. You cited like a Research Innovation Technology, autos, and owner-operated independent drivers association trucks. It would just be nice through here to say where did you get that from as opposed to just Rita. And that's what I meant by citations. It doesn't have to be it's from this particular page or whatever, but just it's from Rita, and this is the data set that you use. It could be a footnote, it could just be a paren, but just something that says more detail than just owner-operator independent drivers association, because okay, I know what they are, but I don't know what particular data set you use to come up with that estimate, or I didn't know where it came from, if that makes any sense.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And where possible, we can even add in a link where the if it's
Yes,
if it's
and you did that with several
link.
things in like the Federal Highway Program, and even there's some steps with the other federal reports and some NCFRP studies that have been mentioned. And there's a lot of times you just say, this is the report and this is what it was from or whatever. It would have been helpful for somebody if they want to do more work. I do appreciate all the extra stuff you did on the rail model when you added the appendix. I think it was, for most people, they're not going to go into that much detail. But that, but just through here, I realized there's a lot of those that was, if you're not in the data, you're not going to know what data set they were talking about.
Okay.
So that's just a documentation issue.
Okay. One of the other comments too that you sent over yesterday, Bruce, I just want to make sure that that we're on the same page. I think what you were asking was to include like a demo data set, such as the output from the travel demand model, and use that demo throughout and use the screen captures from that demo in the user guide so that someone can pick up the demo data set in the user guide and follow it step by step. Was that what you were trying?
That's what I was looking at, because I realized as you went through this, you had stuff from Georgia, you had stuff from Arkansas, you had stuff from Mississippi, and when we had the conference call in August, you said you were going to put out the August Excel chart, which I don't seem to have, and I realized that might be a good way of letting the training continue on past the contract, is if you said, this is the demo data set, this is what it looks like if it came from Cube or from the shift model or Transcad. And so as they're going through it, they would see, if my numbers look different than these numbers, well, there's a way for me to double check the training as I'm going through it.
Okay. Okay. No, that's good, because it also allows you, I mean, we've tried to set this up so that people don't overwrite cells or anything, because it will save, and it'll save the model under a new name, so it preserves your original file. But as people are poking around, there is the possibility that someone accidentally deletes a cell or they overwrite a cell. And certainly if they had that demo database that matched up in the user guide, that would help them pinpoint if and where that may have happened. So.
No, they're going to call me or you up and complain. So yes, but yes, that would be very helpful, just to make sure everything's consistent, so somebody coming back behind it, they could follow the work.
Hey, this is Trung. I think I may have mentioned this in the past, but can't remember if I officially sent in this comment. But when you are selecting the state and then confirming the selection, that confirmation of the selection is done at the very end after you have selected all of these other parameters, correct?
I tend to do it that way, Trong, because it helps to set up the spreadsheets with the correct years.
Okay. Can we either move that confirmation selection all the way down to the bottom at the end, or just make a notation where it says choose state and click confirmation selection after all parameters have been selected?
Okay. Now, if you do hit it before you set up your states, it still works. It's just that your spreadsheets may have lots of years before you get into your benefit stream and everything. So, and that those it may have years where there's no data there, and it causes you to need to scroll a little more.
And just for disclosure with the states, I use GoDaddy as my web hosting platform, and they mitigated the ITTS website to a different server, and it screwed up all of the Adobe CSS files and templates. So I'm still working through that, which is why I have not been able to post all this online, because I've narrowed it down to a PHP program problem. I'm just trying to figure out where that file is out to fix it. So that's why I have not sent you the link with all this posted and all the historic stuff posted, because I had an unexpected change in my host service from GoDaddy. So Paul, as we're going through this, I don't know how many songs is it run?
No, it's still calculating. I should have freed up some more memory. I'm sorry, I've been downloading a bunch of stuff the last couple of days.
So what type of computer do you have? What's the size of your processor and stuff?
Oh, it's the smallest Dell laptop, so it's not very fast. I'm just on a docking station, so. It would certainly break Ely's surface.
Yeah, there's not much to that.
Okay, so let's see, I think.
And another thing, Paul, on my list is I realized if we just had like a 2-page executive summary for each of the 3 models, it probably would help clarification.
Okay. All right. So so now it's finished. You can see that the little circle has gone, and it's allowing me to move the cursor, so I know that it's finished running that macro. So now, since they're using the peak and off-peak, we'll use the time of day model here. Oh, it's got to catch up with me, so sorry. Let me see if I can delete some large files that I've downloaded today. Speed this up a little bit. Okay, well, that's not even where we are. Okay, so let's go back to our parameters page. It looks like it woke up now. Okay, so from here, we're just going to hit our, again, once we have our parameters set up and we're using the time of day, we'll go to the time of day model here. Okay, we did note that if you're not seeing anything, once you go to your model demand, your travel demand modeling page, if you're not seeing anything in your region number and your region names, just know that you have to scroll all the way over here, okay, and then you start to see your name. So all of these sheets have been populated with your either your county names if you're an implant state or your REMI region names if you're a region state, okay. So then I'm using just some travel demand model data from Arkansas that we've had from, gosh, a few years ago. So probably not the cleanest data set to use because this is just raw TDM. So Travis, one of the things is that I know that I told you that there's some issues with the travel demand data that you've been using as your example set. We just need to get a clean set of travel demand modeling data to use for you guys to make sense.
That makes sense. Can you, what project is this, out of curiosity?
You know what? This actually has several different files in here. You can see that this is back from one of those early round of grant applications. You know, again, this is like, for example, the whole travel demand model, all of your regions, your counties, and I know that whenever we did this, like, for example, for the I-30, if I use that data, we didn't use the whole state's worth of model because there's too much noise in the travel demand model for such a spot improvement. So you know, we just need to get, like I said, a clean set of data to use. So the reason that I use this is because it does have data in there for all the counties, so it allows me to check and make sure that that all the county calculations are being done. Whereas if we just use a single county, if there's something wrong with one of the other counties, then that demo wouldn't necessarily show it. So. But we could probably go back, and I don't have the most recent I-30 data that we're using for that analysis. I don't have that on my machine, but I'll get that from Kia and Isabel, and we can do a trial run with that data.
Well, I guess my thought in express this is usually when I receive a tool, I like to have some sort of just like validation step. And if I have the results of a separate analysis with the same data set and they're, you know, more or less comparable, then that makes me comfortable that the tool is working as I anticipated. So if you've got the TDM outputs that you used for that detailed study and we ran it through this and it more or less looks like the results of your more recent study, then that would be great.
Yeah, certainly we can do that. And I think, again, you know, we have, since that's a more detailed analysis, we put in some additional benefits that this tool's not going to pick up, like the navigation benefits and things like that. But we would still be able to. Oops, I put that in the wrong place. I got busy talking. That was actually my build data, my build 2010 data. So what we're doing now is we're just doing the copy and paste on the travel demand model data.
So back to your comment, Travis. So basically, if Paula made this Arkansas file, the dummy that we used, and she had some validation for you, that would also help the other states as well. I'm assuming that would be the case.
Yeah, again, for me, it's just like if you build a software or a statistical analysis package, you go to NIST, and they give you a reference data set and a validation output of the data set to make sure that your tool works properly, and then you can validate your OLS, your OLS tool or whatever. So I need something like that just to feel confident that when I go in and plug in values for a project that I've never had any other analysis on before, that I can report that and feel good about it.
Okay.
Okay, so that has our travel demand model data in there, and just doing a check here that I have a no build. I have a no build 2010, a no build 2040, a build 2010, and a build 2040. And then you click to calculate the benefits. And so now once we've clicked, you'll see that it's doing a little thinking, and here it's telling you kind of the progress that it's making there. And so what's happening at this stage is these are, again, the daily values. And so at this point, it's taking these daily values, and especially if you have the time of day, it's aggregating them up to from your time of day periods to a single daily number, and then it's starting to create your stream of annualized travel demand model. And so it's taking your daily 2010 and 2040 and creating a stream of annualized travel demand model data for your no build and your build starting from 2010 going through 2040. And Travis, I did look at that one formula, and when we get to this annualized travel demand data, I'll show you. I think that your concern was if it was only using between 2010 and the interim year, and it wasn't using the forecast year, but I did double check that, and it is. So once this has finished, then it's going to automatically advance you to the annualized travel demand model data. And so here, you're going to see that it calculates the changes here. So for each of your regions, you're going to have your no build, and then you're going to have your build, and then you'll have your difference, and you'll have that for every year through your end year here, which was 2040. And so when you're looking at this, it is referencing Travis, right up here where you see, if you go over here, and again, there's some hidden things in these cells, so you don't want to go around deleting anything. But over here we have our the growth rates, and the formulas up here are referencing that in the in the BT right here.
So, well, I mean, again, I haven't looked at every cell really closely, but if you scroll over to the right, well, not that far. Let's go to 2040. Yeah, and if you double click on that, your Excel works differently than mine. If I double click on a cell, it highlights in colored boxes which cells are being referenced. Hit F2, I guess. Nice. Okay, so you can see the forecast year is never grabbed by that cell.
Right. The forecast year isn't, but this BT, that's where we have the average annual growth rate from going from your base year to your forecast year.
Okay, so
this is doing the comma. So this is like, if it's yes, then you're going to use that. But then if it's not, then you're going to use this BN33 with that 1 plus that average annual
from BT13
growth rate from BT33.
Okay.
Okay. So just something I know, take another look at it and see if that addresses the concern. All right. So this page here, there's really nothing for you to do, just to kind of eyeball it and make sure that, you know, things are looking the way it is. A lot of times if you do get numbers at the end, you get to your benefit cost and your benefit stream looks a little off, or there's something really that jumps out at you, 9 times out of 10 it's going to come back to the way in which the travel demand model data was input. So that would be kind of the first starting point, is to go back and check and make sure that, that one, it was copied and pasted in correctly, the correct data went into the correct spots, and then 2, that there's nothing within that data itself that looks a little fishy. And I know that there is some things within this data that's not quite up to par. Okay, so we hit that button, and next we're going to go to the safety outputs. Anytime you get to a screen that looks like this, then what you need to do, you should know right away, to go down and just hit your scroll buttons here to get back up to where the data is actually located. Okay, so then this is just, again, all of these steps that are in red, as noted in the user guide, are just really those interim steps, so you can see the interim calculations. There's nothing that you have to do. This is just for you to go in and check and see what's going on within the calculations. Then we can go to 3B, which is the emissions. So the same thing here, and once again, you scroll down to see your different counties over here. So you have this block of calculations for each one of your regions. So we go to 3C. This is your user cost. And once again, you see a blank page. Then you know that you need to go down and hit your scroll buttons here to bring you back up. And so this is a really good summary page for you. And if you're going to be using, this is another note that I can add in the user guide, is that if you're going to be using this for any of the grant applications, this page actually gives you a lot of detail that you could use to create some summary tables that might be useful for that application. Okay, because this really, it provides you with a summary of your travel demand model data, and then as well as getting down in here into your fuel cost savings, your vehicle operating costs, and your value of time impacts. And it provides that for each of your regions. Okay. So next we can proceed to the benefit cost. And once again, this is where the only thing the user has to put in here is this is where you would want to enter in your cost information. And so the user guide includes some notes and hints with regards to cost. And so you have your capital cost, and then you could have your ongoing O&M, operations and maintenance costs. And so you would simply enter that data into these cells. Then it also starts to give you your stream of your benefits. It starts with the undiscounted benefits. Again, provides a really good summary that could be useful for grant applications. And then it can, and this is where it separates out your truck, when your truck, so this is your truck value of time, and that's really talking about your crew. And then your truck, your logistics cost, that's going to be talking about the additional kind of cargo inventory value of time. Okay, so once again, we start to roll everything up down here into your undiscounted benefits, and then we get into the results with the discounted. And so up here, you'll notice your discount rate. We give you the option to use both 7 and 3. It is noted in the user guide. Once again, for federal grant applications, they are required to use 7%, but they also allow you to do an alternative analysis using 3%. So we always recommend that you submit both. And then I didn't put in cost because I wanted you to see what happens here if you don't have any cost. Then you start to get this error because you're trying to divide by 0. So, and then also your internal rate of return is outside of a range because, again, you don't have any cost information there. Okay, and then you can hit the proceed to summary. And then this rolls it up at even a higher level for you. So the table A tells you the analysis parameter summary, and this just tells you kind of how you set the project up. And then this gives you the discounted benefits by region and county, so you can go all the way down here. You'll notice in this example that, oh shoot, I have this fixed. This is one of the fixes that I've made. This cell wasn't calling out all of the numbers, so it was stopping a little short, but I fixed that so it does include, it'll go up to 130 counties now, our regions that you have. There it is. So. And then this gives you the rundown, the benefit cost table C here. So once again, you can start to look at that. And then you can start to look at your, you can see we didn't enter any cost information. And so that's the reason those are 0. And then over here, it gives you some safety and environmental benefits. And this is just telling you in terms of the fuel in gallons, the crash reduction that you have, and then your emissions in terms of tons.
Paula?
Yes.
Travis. So this is just where I think I would be more comfortable if I saw some sort of validation data set. When I look at this, just in terms of the way that we usually get values out of our own BC calculations outside of this tool, it would surprise me, for instance, to see that I've got 4 times vehicle operating cost savings and emission savings, that my safety benefit is that low, that my time savings is the dominant term isn't a surprise to me. And in general, the total value here, if that's for 3 or I guess 2 new location interstate facilities, I guess that total value of $8 billion, I guess seems pretty reasonable for 2 new location interstate facilities. So that doesn't surprise me. But I guess just some of these values relative to one another surprise me, and that's again why I need to see that validation stuff.
Yes. No, absolutely understood. And again, as I had emailed you earlier, there's some issues with the sample data that you've been using, and to be honest, the sample data that's here too. If you look at some of your build and your no build totals, there's no changes in those. And in some counties that may be okay if you're looking at a specific project. But certainly we know that there's issues in the travel demand model data, so I fully understand why you can't really validate the tool if you know you're using faulty travel demand model data.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Okay, so once you review this, you can then proceed to step 4. Okay, and so what that's going to do is this is where it starts to set up the calculations. If you're using implant, this is going to be your auto inputs for implant. If you're using REMI, you're going to have a sheet that looks very similar to this, only it will say auto inputs for REMI. You'll notice here it should have your project name, what wages you're using, if you're using the statistical life, and then the state that you're using. So in these first few rows here under your regions, this is going to give you the aggregate totals of the benefit streams that have been calculated. And then in these rows down here, it starts to then take these and allocate them amongst your different industry sectors, because that's what what both economic models need. Okay, so again, you're going to have a section like this for each of the regions in your model. You will only have data for the regions for which you actually have entered travel demand modeling data. So for example, it may show all of your regions, but if you only put travel demand modeling data in for one region, it's only going to show any findings for that single region. Okay, so then we proceed to step 5. And with step 5, this is the same, looks a lot like the other, but this is for your truck. Okay, so once again, you'll have your aggregate totals up here, and then it starts to distribute those amongst the industry, and it does this for each region that you have data for. Okay, this is the macro that we're currently working on, because it's working on some machines, and some machines it is not. So I know that you've been able to get this to run, Travis, so have I, but it seems like when we open and close, it's just not as stable. That macro's not as stable as it should be. So that's what I have Mike working on for me this morning to figure that out. But what happens when you hit this macro, for the implant model, it's going to do two things. It's going to create an implant sheet for if you for up to 5 regions. Okay. The reason for this is because implant, it's a very clunky model relative to REMI in that you have to create a model and run each region independently. And so in order to create an implant file for every single county within a state, it crashes Excel. It's more than Excel can handle at this point. So we've done it so in some cases you may only be looking at 1 or 2 counties anyway if you're doing a project-specific analysis. So you know, you're not really limited by that. If you are doing a whole batch of projects across the state that may have rippling effects, what it's going to do is it's going to create the implant input sheets for the 5 counties with the largest impact. It's going to create them 2 ways. One, it will add an additional tab for each of those within your model spreadsheet itself to be saved with this model. And it will also create individual files, worksheet files that you can then save. The reason it does both is, one, it's easier to import the individual files into the implant model. 2, it puts it in the model itself because then that gives you something to go back and kind of look at for that model after you run the analysis and just keep it in your files. Okay, so once you're actually able to get that macro to work, now, I have an example I can open up to show you what those tabs are going to look like where it has worked. Then you can hit the Save Model. And then what it's going to do now is you can see that it's already changing the name to February 1 test, and remember that's the project name. So it's going to save this model with the FEET Econ model and the extension that matches your project name here.
Travis, I know you're getting ready to leave. Is there anything particular that has not been addressed yet that we need to address?
Hey, this is Virginia. Travis has already stepped out. He feels like that he and Paula have communicated, and that last bit that she did with the validation is, as long as we can get that reconciled, I think he's comfortable with what's going on. But it's that whole validation issue at this point.
Okay.
Okay, and then the user guide goes on to instruct the user how to actually start to pull this up and put it into the implant. Here's a model that I ran yesterday using the same tool. It's the reason this macro is just not. And this is what the implant sheets. Once the macro runs, it creates these implant tabs with the inputs that are used to run the implant model. And so that's what those are going to look like. Okay. And so then once you actually run the implant, you can then come into here, and then this is the implant you can export your results tables into, implant will export it in a format that looks like this, and so this would allow you to copy and paste the output from implant into this model file, so you could keep everything together in a single file. Okay. And so that's really how to run through the implant. I'm not sure if you want to do a REMI example is going to work exactly the same way, except for, okay, so that model saved just now. So we'll go back and look at where I told it to save it, and you can see that that's the model that we just ran. So it saved and closed. All right, so Bruce, not sure if you wanted to do.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't know if people want to go through the ops model on the call. I mean, I have some questions over the rail model, but
okay.
But I don't know if people want to do the ops model now or not. So I'll defer to those people who are on the call. And for those people who, well, why don't you just show them the screen, Paula, because I know we have some people, this is the first time they've seen these tools.
Okay.
So you don't have to go through every step and actually build the model unless they
yeah,
ask.
the ops model is pretty easy. So.
But I think if you just explained to them this is what the model was supposed to do and was supposed to deliver, and then we can talk about the rail model, we can talk about a few other things.
Okay, great. Okay, so for the ops model, you can start your analysis here. Once again, you're going to have kind of this overview, instructions and overview. You got the notes here that if it's in this peach color, that the users are required a selection, and then the user are required inputs indicated by the green. So if we go to step 1, once again, you're going to set this up the same way that you did with the own model tool. So I'm going to just name this February 1 ops. I'm going to go back to my February test and just thought this one would run faster. I know, this is like, I promised to be on a faster machine to the final demo for this. Okay. Anyway, we'll see if that's going to catch up with me. So the same thing here in terms of your county or state wage rates would be in here. And then once again, this tool also creates the inputs and the outputs for an implant and a REMI. And then you have your state selection here. You have your discount rate that you can choose. You have your starting analysis year. This is 2018 here. You have your end analysis year, and then you have your REMI base year if you're using the REMI model, and then you also have the toggle switch to switch on or off the statistical life. Let's see if this is
Paula, why don't you just briefly explain to those people who may not know the difference between this model and what they just saw?
Okay. The previous model, again, we talked about that being an on-model tool. That's going to be used to evaluate projects for which you're going to use a travel demand model data to see how it changes the performance of your system. We know that there are a lot of safety and operational type projects that really don't lend themselves to being modeled by a travel demand model because they typically are more spot improvements. And so this tool was developed to help give a more sketch-level analysis than the previous tools, certainly, but a sketch-level analysis of the impacts of these types of operational and safety projects that don't really lend themselves for use to be modeled by a travel demand model. Okay, so once you have your parameters set up here, you can see that there's a lot fewer things that you're looking at here. This tool is only going to evaluate value of time and safety impacts. It does not evaluate any vehicle operating cost or emission benefits. So that does make it a higher, more sketch level type analysis. But once you have all of this in, you're going to once again hit your confirm selection. And you can see this one runs much faster because it's not populating all of those different sheets and everything. So now you can proceed to step 2. Step 2 is really, this is going to be the sheet where the user is going to have to put in some input. So you can put in the number of projects. You can do you can use a single model, an individual model for every single project and do one project per tool, or you can do, unlimited number of projects if you want to do a whole batch of projects at the same time. So we'll just put in 2 here, and we'll hit confirm. And then you'll notice that once you hit confirm, and now I have 2 project numbers here, so 2 projects that I can, if I put in 25, it would have given me 25 of these rows. Okay, so we've really developed this to make it as simple for the user as possible using the minimal amount of data. Now, anytime that you do that, you are giving up some of the level of sophistication. However, within the tool, it does give the user, if you have a more detailed analysis that will give you better information than using the default assumptions, it gives you the opportunity to go in and add in that information. So for the project names here, we're just going to be real simple and name them A. And then for the project type, here's the drop-down list. This is also included in the user guide to tell you the types of projects that we have here. And so again, you'll see that these tend to be operational and or safety projects. Sometimes the motivation is for both. So let's go in and say that we're going to do an interchange reconstruction. So then the project motivation here, you can choose either operational and safety. In that case, it's going to calculate both the value of time differences as well as the safety impacts. If you do operational only, it's only going to calculate the value of time. If you do safety only, then it's only going to calculate the safety impacts. So
Paul, is there a limit to how many project numbers you can have?
No, I haven't tried to break it yet, but I know that we've done up to 25. But I mean, if you put in 100, I mean, it's going to give you 100 different rows to go in and fill in the information. And so really the only limitation is going to be your machine capabilities. Okay, so then you're going to choose your county or your region. So I've chosen Georgia as the state, so we can use, let's say, Gwinnett County. And then the other information that you need to have is going to be your average annual daily traffic. So we'll just put in 14,000 for this one. Oops. Okay, so if we go into project level B, we're going to fill in the same information here. So this one, let's say that we're going to add in a roundabout. It's going to be both operational and safety. And then we'll choose a county here. We'll say it's in the heart of Georgia. And then we're going to say this one's going to have, say, 6,000. Okay. Once you have all of your project information in, you then hit the calculate and proceed to step 3 button. And again, down here in the green ribbon, it'll tell you kind of the processing, what's going on there. Once this is finished calculating, it'll automatically take you to that Step 3 tab, which will give you your project detail. And so even if you're going to do a whole batch of projects, you still get project detail on each individual project. So you're still going to get this table for each individual project that you have. So here you can say in the top corner here, this is kind of, again, what you told the tool, which is your project number. This was your first project, your name, the type of project, the motivation, the location of it, and the AADT. Here you're going to have all of the default values in here. This is where you can have your user override. So if you're going to be doing an interchange reconstruction, chances are that there's been some sort of interchange justification report done, and it may give you better information than what we have in the user default. So for example, you may know that actually the average annual daily growth rate is higher than the 1%, and it's coming in at 2%. So then you can put in 2 there. And then you'll notice once you use that user override, the values used then changes as well. And then you may say, well, we know that this is also a high truck location, so we know that the truck volume, the share is 22%. Okay, so you'll see that the values used are 22%. If you know, for example, we said that the no build level of service is an F, and so the default is if it's an F, that the delay per vehicle is 55 seconds. Well, we're like, well, it's really not that. We're not sure what it is, but the level of service is actually at a D level. Then what that does is it changes the D, but it also changes your delay per vehicle. The user can go in and override both of these. Okay, so you say, well, it's level of service D, it's not quite at 35, it's actually at 40. Then you can see that it allows you to change both of those. Okay, and then some of the other things are the number of congested hours per day, the percent of the auto leisure trips, commute trips, and business trips. And then you'll see down here for your safety, you can see here that the crash reduction rate is assumed to be 10% for this particular type of investment. You can see down here that again that the roundabout is considered to be a moderate level of improvement, so that gives you a 10%. If you have information or data that's different, you can override any of these factors here. Okay, so as you're changing any of these overrides, you'll also, excuse me, should have pointed out that these numbers over here were changing as well, so it was automatically updating these numbers. Okay, so once you've gone through and you've entered in any other overrides that you have, you can then proceed to your summary report. And so the project detail gives you the project level. For the summary, this actually adds everything up together. And so this is going to give you the total benefit results for all the projects that have been entered. Okay, so now we'll proceed to step 4. So once again, we'll look here, and this is where you're going to look at your auto inputs, and we're using Georgia, so they have a REMI model. You'll notice that it's 0 for these counties. Well, that's because we didn't say that there was a project in these counties. But once we get down here to where one of the projects was, which we said there was one in the heart of Georgia, you can see that these numbers are filled in. Okay, and then you'll go, and here's a sheet on step 5, which is the truck inputs for REMI. So you're going to see the same sort of thing. So we'll scroll down to our heart of Georgia to make sure that we have the calculations in there, and you'll see that here they are. Okay. So once you check that, you can go to 6A. And then this is what your REMI input sheet looks like. So is quite different from the in-plan. These are dictated by those economic models, and so this is just the layout of the data that's required by REMI in order to be imported into REMI. So here you can run your saving macro. And so what this is going to do is that this is going to rename your model file, and it's going to produce your REMI input file and save those in the location that you told it to in the Parameters tab. And you'll know that this is finished because it will close down the model when it finishes. Okay, so the model's been closed. So let's go back to the February 1 test file location. And you can see here that I have my ops model, my February 1 ops, that's the project name, and then I have the REMI input file here. Okay, just to open this up, this is the file you would then go and open up your REMI model and follow the instructions in the user guide and import this into REMI, and then hit run on your REMI, and then it's going to run, and you would export the results from your REMI model into an Excel spreadsheet. Once you have your REMI results, you could reopen your model file here. And go to your REMI results, and then you would copy from the export file from REMI and just paste it into here, and it would override all of these values that you see here. Okay, the other thing that has happened here is that it has also, once you paste in your REMI results, it populates these GIS files as well. And then there's instruction guides on how to take those and import them and link them to ArcGIS for use. Okay, and so then you're free to close this out once you're finished with it. And again, it's saved under the project name so that you would maintain the integrity of the clean file for the next time you want it to run the tool.
Any questions from anybody on the ops model? Yeah, Paul, I don't think anybody had any problems with that one compared to the on model. That one seemed to be the one with the more concerns.
Okay, and so then we come up with the rail model. Now, Bruce, I've noted your concern. I've talked about it within the user guide too. This is really more of a what-if analysis.
Well, I figured out how to put that in, Paula, without violating your AAR thing last night. So we can talk about that once you run through as you're running through the model.
Okay. All right. So with this one, we've done a couple things here, and I'll get through. I'll talk about those as we come to it. So you can start the analysis here. Here you're going to set up the project name. And then you're going to select your project type. And so there are 3 project types here: intermodal yard, track upgrades up to 286,000 pounds, and then double tracking. And the last time when we first demoed this in August, it assumed if you go down here to the select the potential for truck-to-rail diversion, because that's really what's going to drive the benefit stream here. You can have high, moderate, and low. The initial version of this model assumed that all three project types had the same diversion potential for high, moderate, and low. What we've done this time is we've actually changed that. So let's go ahead and select that this track upgrades is going to give us a low truck to rail diversion potential. And I'm going to unhide the assumptions sheet here. This is also, we put this in the user guide as well. And so this is what we've changed it to. So for track upgrades, your low is going to be a 5%, moderate 8%, and a high potential would be 12%. For the intermodal yard, the low is 5%, moderate is 10%, and then high would be 15%. And double tracking is 8%, 15%, and 20%. Now, these are based upon a very small samples of studies that we could actually get a hold of that would give us some examples of this. And so looking at these different types, there's been some project level analysis. Again, they may not be in the same geography. They may not be in the same trade lanes. So it still remains, very sketch level, but we did go back and look up a few case studies to try to see if we could come up with some sort of support for these assumptions behind here. Now, the tool becomes more powerful if you've actually done a more detailed truck-to-rail diversion analysis. If you've done that, then you can simply go in and put in the findings of that study within this assumption tab, and then it will calculate the benefit cost stream for you. Okay, so going back to the parameters here, so we're going to say this is a track upgrade, low diversion potential, and then again the model save path, that's going to be the same as we've done for the last couple models.
Paula, this was the thing I was thinking about last night, is that your potential for truck rail diversion is low, that's fine, but if you did this project for anywhere in the state of Georgia or the Commonwealth of Kentucky or Florida, you get the same result. You get the same output. And so what I realized probably be good if you said, put a disclaimer somewhere and says, we anticipate this to be 1,000 truck trips or 100 truck trips a day or some qualifier like that, so you can look at a smaller intermodal yard, and as opposed to saying for all of Georgia, because then this numbers aren't really as useful. Even if, so, you could still not violate whatever you did for your private model, but at least it give you some way of putting in some estimate of how much trucks are really being diverted or how much trucks are in the corridor or something like that.
Yeah, I think that, I actually put a little section in the user guide about this being one of the extensions for this model, is to add in some geographic detail so that it could then go in and, because basically whenever we do one of these studies, a standalone study like this, if we're looking at a new intermodal facility, one of the first things that we do is we go in and we look at the, we run and we look at the trade lanes and start to evaluate the trade lanes. And we'll cut those off into distance bins, and, all of that's talked about within this. But because we have a site-specific location, it allows us to really narrow in on the trade lanes. That's the piece that this current tool is missing, is being able to really narrow in on the trade lanes. And so you are correct in saying that if you're going to do a track upgrade, let's say this is going to be in, Carroll County, Georgia, then, the tool as it is looking at all of the trade lanes that come through Georgia, whether or not they would be impacted by this track upgrade. And so the user guide definitely recognizes that as the major shortcoming of this tool. but I think to go in and really be able to automate it to pinpoint the trade lanes.
So I didn't mean pinpoint a trade lane. I just meant, say, you just put a cap that's going to be, you're talking about 100 trucks a day or 1,000 trucks. Just scaling.
Oh, okay. So instead of using a percentage, like a 5% of the truck
the modal traffic
to rail, you could, okay.
And that would be an alternative, because, like, for instance, if I'm looking at a project, I know they're talking about 100 trucks a day, I can just go and type 100 trucks a day.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting, and I think that would be certainly an easier thing to implement than doing trying to automate the trade lane selection.
No, and that would still keep you in the geography of the state and some other things.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to think about that one.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So then, when you get here, you can then choose your state. So let's say this is going to be in Mississippi. You can choose again the discount rate, and you'll see the 3 and the 7% there. Your starting analysis year and your end analysis year. The same thing in terms of your fatality impacts and your CO2 benefits. And then this is also your freight annual growth rate. So right now that stands at 2%, but if you know along this corridor, let's say that you know that there's a large shipper looking at the site and you're looking at doing this as a way to try to attract that shipper and it's going to lead to a faster growth rate, then you would certainly want to capture that here. Okay, and then that's all the data that's required of the user for this. So then you hit the proceed to the benefit calculation, and then here you can see that you have your diversion potential in terms of your truck miles. You have your freight rate savings, and you have your congestion savings. Now, based upon the truck miles, you're able to calculate some emission impacts, your road maintenance, so your state of good repair benefits, and then your safety benefits as well. And you'll see that that's done for the benefit stream here. And then you can proceed here to your benefit cost. This is where, once again, you'd want to put in some cost data. This has a leftover residual of $50 million that we put in here. This is going to look very similar to your summary pages from your other two tools with your undiscounted benefits and then the results that you have here. And you can see that if this were truly to be the case, you'd have a benefit cost ratio of 2.0. Okay. So then you can proceed to your summary file here. And again, this tells you kind of your project parameter summary. And then this is your benefit cost analysis summary here. And then it allows you to save the file. And we'll go back to our February 1 test. And here's your feet rail model with your rail test February 1 where it's been saved. Okay. Any questions or comments? The user guide, we added in a lot more detail on the research that actually went behind that. One of the things that you'll note in the rail model is it is high level and it is pretty simplistic, but the thing that's really driving all of this is this diversion potential sheet. And this is what we've used some tools that CS had previously developed to actually run some scenarios to come up with. This applied a distance filter, knowing that the longer distances have a greater propensity to divert than shorter distances, and it also ran a commodity filter for the ITTS states, knowing that some commodities are more compatible for rail than others. And so this really sorts it out based upon the commodities and the distances that are most likely to be rail friendly or rail divertible. And so this sheet right here is really where the work for the rail model came in.
It's where the magic happens.
Yep.
Okay. No, I think, Paula, just that for me, the adding the additional stuff for the rail model and the fact that you made all the assumptions the same was not very useful. So I appreciate you adding these extra things to this particular section. I guess, is there any other questions by the other on the states that are out that are still on the call?
Nothing else from Arkansas. You know, I've let Travis carry the banner on this one, so I think once we get all the other stuff reconciled, we'll be able to go forward from there. But I don't have any more questions.
And I think, Virginia, what I'd like to do is get the like I was telling Travis, we'll get the latest process travel demand model data that we're using for the I-30, since we do have a more in-depth project-specific analysis with that data. And then I'll pass that with you guys and make sure that you're comfortable with that travel demand model data, and then we'll use that as the validation data set once you're comfortable with it.
Okay, we'll try to do that. What are you using, okay, not to get off in the weeds, but what are you using for the I-30 to do your benefit cost?
Well, it's still not going to be a clean one-to-one comparison because we have both regional travel demand model data, but that's from the Little Rock model, the MPO model, and then we also have simulation data. So there may be another data set. If you guys have another statewide model data set that you feel really good about the travel demand model data output and it's clean, then I'm happy to use that too.
Yeah, we got the CARTS model and we got the statewide TDM, which are typically in the same order of magnitude. You know, I'm not certain, but one of my questions on the validation is, you know, at that point, all you're doing is validating TDM results against each other, which you don't have to go through this exercise to do it.
Well, no. I mean, once we feel good about the travel demand model data, then running it through the tool, we can then compare the user benefits. And what Travis was saying, the reason the I-30 came up is because we've been doing that analysis and we have those user benefit results. Even if some of the assumptions differ a little bit, we can look at the order of magnitude, is what he was saying.
All right, I'm gonna talk to Travis about that, but it's you know, it's an iterative process and it's going to take us a while to get there. But you know, anytime you have a new tool, you just want to make sure you don't want to use it completely straight out of the can without validating it. So, but I think we're good. I don't want to dominate this conversation, so monopolize it.
Well, Virginia, I mean, I know that Travis has done a lot of work and communicated a lot of that. I know that Jeff and Trung are on the call, and I know that Paul has done a lot of work with the Mississippi portion of it. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. Paula, one of the things I was thinking about is going through, you know, like we said, preparing that dummy data set, I guess, for lack of a better word, so people can go through it. Each one use the same data set and be consistent when they look at the reports. I think that'd be very helpful for people.
Okay. Yes, we'll use it. We'll call it a demonstration instead of a dummy data set.
Well, I don't care what you call it, but I just think that'd be very handy. And I was saying it might be good if we just picked one of the shift model outputs, because that way they can tie it back to the TransCAD, and then you don't have that problem that Virginia and Travis mentioned about the validation, because the shift model was not really validated in the same way, but at least they can take the model, understand how it went through TransCAD. I sent you the scenarios for shift.
Yeah, but I think what they're talking about validation, again, it's not validation of the travel demand model data that they're trying to get.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just saying, if you're going to put it in a training context, I would like it to be one of the shift models, because they have all the other training on how the shift models were developed.
Hey, Paula, this is Trung. The REMI output file, I believe, was the last thing that we had a comment on regarding that extra lineage to make it a smooth transition into the import.
Yes, I did work with Remy on that. Let me circle back on that one. So.
Thanks.
Paul, I don't think. I think what we'll do is you and I will have a discussion either today or tomorrow or maybe Monday, and we can talk about the next steps, and we can get that to everybody fairly quickly. And I'll summarize these notes. Well, not summarize them, but we have the notes, and I've got a few more notes that I've written up. I'll share that with the group as well.
Okay. I think on getting the demonstration data, I'll have to check on the files with Sheldon for the shift model and everything, and then I do want to do something with Arkansas to get something that they can actually validate the calculations that the sheet's doing. That's what they're wanting to validate.
No, I understand that. I think that's a good final step. But I said I took a few notes. We mentioned a few things today. I'm going to summarize what we kind of discussed, and we can find a path forward.
Okay. And then as I stated at the beginning of the call and on the email yesterday, I do have some updated versions, and we did not post those until after today so that we can just post one kind of final updated version of everything.
Well, and I didn't know if there was any that's why I was wondering if you should maybe wait and do it on Monday if there's any updates that you got out of this phone call today that need to be addressed. Like Trung had a question about the order of the steps, making sure that
yeah.
So if you want to address some of those, and then we'll put it up on Monday. I want to make sure that you have time to address what was discussed today.
Well, yeah, right. Well, Monday may be a little aggressive if we're going to be doing this demonstration data, because that's going to involve running that and going in and replacing all of the screen captures in the menu.
I knew. I just put Monday as a date. There's nothing hard and fast. It's just I know that there's things that have to be done. We have to agree on the next step. And, I'm assuming it's going to take, you have to work with Virginia and Travis on the Arkansas feed. You and I have to talk about the shift model and the training thing. So, but again, I have a pretty hard deadline in the middle of February that we need to be working towards.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely next week. The plan is, and I've cleared some time on my calendar and everything. Monday was just a little aggressive, but my goal is by mid next week is my goal, to be honest.
Well, then let's just plan on doing this. We'll just say next Wednesday will be kind of the drop dead date and I'll send out a note to the states as well. I will post the video that I recorded today online, so if people want to go back and review the notes, they can. And we've already sent out the links of what was available, so I just think there's things we have to address and just go forward with it.
All right.
So hearing no more, I will thank everybody, and I'll talk to all y'all later.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.